Hello and welcome to video 5, column addition.
Okay, column addition. We use column addition when we've got some larger numbers to add and it's more difficult for us to do that mentally in our heads. Before we go on to column addition, I want to quickly recap over base 10 because I will be using it to make sense of the process, the strategy of using column addition. So, as we've done before, base 10, we've said that a unit we represent like this. Just for ease, and so I'm not spending ages drawing in front of you, I'm going to draw units as a dot. Usually we draw them as a cube. I'm going to draw tens, which usually are rods because it's 10 of these stuck together. I'm just going to do, for ease, a line for a 10. And the same with the hundreds. I'm just going to do a square as I usually do. Okay, so column addition. I've got here the word column, and what we mean by columns is that we're actually organising the numbers into their place value positions. Okay, so we talked about before with units, tens, hundreds, thousands, and we were saying that these are their column, their base 10 positions. That's all it means with column addition. We're just going to put them into their column positions. At school we usually have the squared paper to help us. A bit more difficult with a blank whiteboard, but we'll get through it. Okay, so we're going to start off with this calculation here, this sum. So we've got 476 here. We're going to add, we're going to make an increase to this number, we're going to make this number bigger, we're going to add 222 to it. Okay, now I think many of you could probably do this mentally, but I'm just going to use these 3-digit numbers to show you how we're going to use the column strategy for column addition. So I'm going to write our initial number, 476. I've got 6 units, 7 tens and 4 hundreds. I'm going to put them in their column positions. I'm going to line up 222. So I've got 2 units going into the units column, 2 tens going under the tens column, and 2 hundreds going under the hundreds column. I'm going to use my operation there, and I'm going to say I'm going to make these ones bigger because I'm adding. I'm then going to say what is that equal to. I'm now going to start adding up in my columns. I'm always going to start with the smallest place value position column first. So here it happens to be my units, but I'll always go for the smallest column first, and I'll explain why in a bit. So I've got 6 units and I'm going to add 2 units. Here's my 6 units and I'm going to add 2 units. That's given me 8 units. Next column is my tens. 7 tens, let me draw this out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Add 2 tens is the same as 9 tens. Moving on to my next column, I've got 4 hundreds, add 2 hundreds, and that's the same as 6 hundreds. So that's the same as 698. Okay, let's have a look at another calculation. This time we're going to be looking at what happens if the columns add up to more than 10, because as we know, we work in a base 10 system, and if there's more than 10 of that certain place value, we have to move it up into the next place value position. So just as before, using the column strategy, we're going to write down the numbers in their columns. Again, I've got 476, I've got 6 units, 7 tens and 4 hundreds. I'm going to add, I'm going to increase, make bigger, 119 to this. So this initial number is going to get bigger. So I've got 9 units, I'm going to make sure they're in the same columns, 1, 10 and 100. I'm going to use my addition symbol to show me that I'm going to make that increase, and I'm going to ask what's that the same as. I've also got my base 10 here to explain what we're doing. we always add up the smallest place value column position first, and again we so happen to be starting with the units. So we're saying to ourselves, we've got 6 units, add 9 units. Okay, I can already see I've got way more than 10 there. I know that 6 add 9 is 15. So I'm going to take those 10 and make that one rod of 10. Okay, we know if we've got 10 units, we need to put them into the next place value position. So with 15, I'm going to put the 5 here in the units where they belong and move this 10 over here underneath so that I've got it in the right column. I've got 7 10s, add 1 10, add the extra 10 we've got, which means that we've now got 9 10s. Then we've got 4 hundreds, add 1 more 100, means that we've got 500. 595. By taking that 10 and moving it into the next column, we've called that carrying. We know when we have more than 10 of one place value, it needs to go into the next column, and that's what we do when we do column addition. Have a look at this example. Pause the video, have a go at using column addition. Remember to line them up using the column place value. Also remember to add the smallest place value position first, and then we'll go through the answers together. Okay, so I've set out my calculation into their columns. I've got my units lined up, my tens lined up, and my hundreds lined up. I've also put my addition symbol there to say that I'm going to make my number bigger. I'm going to do an increase of this initial number here, and I've also asked what is it the same as, my equal sign. I'm going to add my smallest place value column first, which in this example is my units. So I've got 1 unit, add 3 units, that gives me 4 units. I have 2 tens, add 9 tens. That gives me 11 tens. Now I know that 10 tens, when we've got 10 tens, we stick them together to make 100. So we've actually got 11 tens. We're going to put the 1 10 that it belongs to in there, and we're going to carry this 100 into the next column. So we're saying we've got an extra 100 to go. 300s, add 100, add the extra 100 we've got, gives us 500s. And we've carried, remember, that extra 100 here into the columns, into the 100 column. 514. Okay, so now we're going to look at column addition using decimals. And we've talked about decimals before, but just as a quick recap, this decimal point means that the number afterwards is going to be smaller than a unit. So here we've got some 7 tenths, and here with these decimals here, this decimal point tells us that these numbers are smaller than a unit. We'll have 1 tenth and 9 hundredths. So just as we did with the column addition using 100, tens and units, we need to line these numbers up into their place value columns. My advice to you would be to start with your decimal point and line them up around your decimal point. That way you're not going to get confused into which column's going where. So this number here, 3.19. I'm going to put my 3 units here in this column. I've got 1 tenth and 9 hundredths. Here, I've got my decimal point here, and I've got 7 tenths here, and then I've got 17, 7 units and 1 10. Okay, I'm going to put my addition sign to show what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to make an increase, and I'm going to make this initial number bigger. I'm going to put my line here to say that it's the same as. I'm going to get started. I've got some gaps here. I've actually got no hundredths here. So to help me out, I could put a 0 here. You don't have to, but as long as you know that there's no hundredths there. Again here, I've got no tens. So I'm going to put a 0 here just to remind me that I've got no tens in that number too. Now we can get started. Now when we were doing column addition before, we said that we always added the smallest place value position column first. That's because, remember, we were having to carry on to the next column. If we start over here, we're going to have a problem when we're carrying. At this point, our smallest place value position in this calculation is our hundredths. I'll just write these on top for you. Lovely. So, I've got 9 hundredths. I'm going to add no hundredths. I've got 9 hundredths altogether. 1/10 add 7 tenths is the same as 8 tenths. Here, 3 units, add 7 units. We already know that that's going to make 10 because we know that 3 add 7 is 10. So we're going to have no units there. I'm going to carry this 10 underneath here to say actually that needs to go into this column here. 0 tens add 1 10 add 1 10 is the same as 2 tens. So our answer here is 20.89. Okay, so now we've got 3 numbers that we're going to add up using the column addition. This is the advantage of the column addition. It would be really difficult to do this mentally with 3 sets of numbers in your head, but using the columns we can just add down the columns and carry if necessary. So as I said before, it's a really good idea when we're using the column strategy with decimals that we line our numbers up around the decimal point. That way we don't get into confusion. So here we've got the number 4.98. I've got 4 units, 9 tenths and 8 hundredths. 6.94, 6 units, 9 tenths and 4 hundredths. And here 12.3. So I've got the point there. I've got the 3 here, I've got 2 units and the 1/10. And that would be the one that you'd slip up because some people would start moving it along. You need to make sure you're lining it up in its place value position. So before we get started, we've got a gap here. We could put a placeholder in to help us to remember we've got no hundreds. And here we could put placeholders in to say that we've got no tens and no tens in this number and no tens in this number. We always add, putting the symbol there to show we're going to make an increase of this number here by these 2, and we're going to ask what's that equal to. We're going to add up the smallest place value position first so that we can carry if needs be if our number is bigger than 10. So hundredths, we've got 8 hundredths, add 4 hundredths. Now, I'm not going to draw out the tenths and the hundredths for you using base 10. The reason being they're so small that you aren't going to see them. So, 8 hundredths add 4 hundredths is 12 hundredths. That means I've got 1/10 and 2 hundredths left. 2 hundredths go here and I'm going to carry that 1/10 along here. Now, I've got 9 tenths, add 9 tenths, add 3 tenths. I know that double 9 is 18, so then I'm going to add my 3, which is 21, and add the extra 1, which is 22. 22 tenths. So I've got the 2 tenths there that I know is definitely within that tenth. I've actually got 20 tenths left. That's the same as 2 whole units. So we're going to carry that 2 into our units here. 4 units, add 6 units, we know is 10. Add the extra 2 is 12 units. Add the extra 2 units down here is 14 units. So I'm going to put the 4 here in the units and carry that extra 10 into its correct column position. No tens, add no tens, add 1/10, add 1/10 is 2 tenths. So we've got the answer here, 24.22. Have a go at these examples. Choose just one of them and pause the video. Work them out using column addition. Remember to line them up using the decimal point. Then we'll go through the answers once you're finished. Okay, we're going to answer this question here. So we're going to line it up using the place value columns. So remember before I said the easiest thing to do is to line it up using the decimal points here to make sure that we don't make any silly mistakes with where we place our place values. So here I've got 9.17. So I'm going to put 9 here in the units, 1 in the tenths and 7 in the hundredths. Then I've got 76.042. So I'm going to put that 0 here in the tenths, 4 in the hundredths and 2 in the thousandths. Then I've got the 6 units here that's going in the same column as the 9 and the 7 tenths, which has got its own column. I'm then going to put the addition sign because I'm going to make it bigger and I'm going to say what's it equal to. I'm going to put 0 here to remind myself I've got no tenths here. I'm going to put a 0 here to remind myself I've got no thousandths either. I'm going to add the smallest place value column first, which is my thousandths. 0, add 2, so 0 thousandths, add 2 thousandths is 2 thousandths. 7 hundredths, add 4 hundredths is 11 hundredths. So I've got one of the hundredths that is still viable, but 10 hundredths we know is the same as a tenth. So we're going to carry that one into the next column. 1 tenth, add 1 tenth is 2 tenths. I'm going to make sure I put in my decimal point because we're saying that these numbers are smaller than 1 whole unit. 9 units, add 6 units is the same as 15 units. We could put that 5 in there from the 15 because they're still units, but that extra 10 needs to go into the next column. So we've got 1 10 going in here. 7 tens, add 1 10 is the same as 8 tens. If we have a look at this one, it was more complicated, not from the maths involved, but the layout more than anything else. So again, I'm going to line it up using my place value, using my decimal points to help me out. I've got 7.3671. So 7 in the units, 3 in the tenths, 6 in the hundredths, 7 in the thousandths, and 1 in the tens of thousandths. Now I've got 163.94. So I'm going to put the 9 tenths in the correct place and the 4 hundredths in the correct place. I've then got the 163, sorry. I'm going to put the 3 units in that place under the 7. Then I've got 6 tens and 1 hundred. I'm going to make sure I put my correct symbol here to show that I'm going to make the number bigger, and I'm going to draw my line to say it's the same as. I'm going to put my placeholders here in the thousandths and the tenths of thousandths because I've got nothing there and I want to remind myself when I'm lining up my columns. I've also got no tens in this number and no hundreds in this number, and that's just there to help me remember so I don't get confused about lining up my columns. We always add up our smallest place value column first because we might need to carry on to our next place value position, and this time we're in the tens of thousandths. I've got 1 tens of thousandths, add non-tens of thousandths, so that's 1 tens of thousandths. That's a lot of things to say in one go. 7 thousandths, add no thousandths, that is 7 thousandths. 6 hundredths, add 4 hundredths, that's 10 hundredths. Now we know that 10 hundredths is 1 10. So we've got no hundredth left and 1 tenth left there. We're going to carry that into the next column. 3 tenths, add 9 tenths is the same as 12 tenths. Add the extra 1 is 13 tenths. So I'm going to put the 3 tenths in there because 1 at 10 tenths is the same as 1 unit, and carry that 1 into the unit column. 7 units, add 3 units is 10 units, add the extra 1 is 11 units. So I've got 1 single unit and the 10 are stuck together and gone into the tens column. 0 10, add 6 10, add 1 10 is 7 tens. And 100, and nothing else is 100. I've got the number 171.3071. Okay, so we're going to add our new learning to our number mind map. So we're going to go from mental addition and we're going to come up here to column addition. we've just learned that in column addition, we need to make sure we're lining up our sums in the columns. And it would be a good idea to make sure that we line things up around a decimal point if we're going to be adding decimals. We know that we're going to be adding the smallest column first. We also know there's something about carrying as well. And we carry onto the next column, or the place value column, when the number is 10 or bigger. How's that linked to our previous understanding? We used fluency again to help us quickly add up those two numbers so that we could come up with our answer. Place value helped us with our fluency, also helped us out with our column addition. And we knew that we could use column addition if our mental strategies got a little overloaded.